You make good money, but you are skating literally on thin ice financially. Because if we can't use our hands, we're screwed.
You cannot become wealthy if all you do in your life is trade your time for money.
If I started taking time away from treating patients and having to deal with tenants, I'm losing out. People are saying, well, how do you deal with all the phone calls and management, this and that? We don't.
So folks, how is it that a dentist, and all of you know dentists make a lot of money, right? That's what we're all taught to believe. But how does a dentist go from a thriving practice to owning mobile homes? That's the question we're going to get into today. My name's Chris Naugle, and welcome to the Money School Podcast, a podcast that we talk about money, but not just money. We talk about taking back control of your money. And we're going to dive into that today. We're going to go through a story. Okay, for my guest has just got an amazing story, a story of someone who had the dream, right, to be the dentist. And I grew up in a town where the dentists in my town were the wealthy ones. They were the ones that everybody perceived they've got all the money. And even when I was a financial advisor, I remember I started calling on dentists because they had all the money. But there's some unique things that we're going to get into in this interview that are going to disrupt our way of thinking about dentists and doctors. We know them to be the high income earners, but what do they go through? How much debt do they take on to be that doctor, to have those two letters in front of their name? But not only that, what risk do they have? Like if you're a dentist and you have a ski accident that breaks your wrist, you can't do your practice anymore. And if you're a solo practitioner, you are dead in the water. So how does a dentist go from being a solo practitioner with a thriving practice to owning mobile home parks? That's what we're going to talk about with my guest, Dr. Jeff Anzalone. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me here, Chris. Looking forward to it.
Me too. So I've read all about your story, and you're pretty well known out there in the space, but you were that guy that, from school, you went on to be a doctor, and I live next to doctors and they live in big houses, drive really nice cars. From the outside looking in, they've got it all figured out. But what is it that we're not seeing, doctor? What is it that actually happens behind the scenes of a doctor?
I think it's a couple of things. One of the main things is you start off way behind the eight ball, meaning most of my friends get out of school 21, 22 years old, out of college. But if you take the route of medical school or dental school and you do a residency, you could be 28, 29. I was 30 years old starting. So not only do you start back behind the eight ball, but you accumulate a lot of debt. And now the debt is it's insane. It's 500 to 700,000 a year, and these people are getting out making 250 a year. Just the math doesn't work.
It's not math. And so you're serious? Like the schooling today is $500 to $700,000?
That's about the average because there's more and more private schools.
Gosh.
Yeah, so I mean, you can go out and out of high school become a plumber and make 100K, and by the time that person is 30 and the doctor's starting off, you're well ahead of today's doctors.
The other thing I've noticed with doctors, and listen, maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe this is just a thing up here in New York, but it seems like doctors play this keep up with the Joneses game, right? They want to have all the fancy things, like, the fancy house, the fanciest cars. Like they really do play up to that image. I got another doctor, he's not a dentist, but right down the road in the cul-de-sac, he's got multiple Ferraris and he's got all this stuff. And I think about it like, listen, I do quite well and I don't have all that stuff, but I'm just like, is this just keeping up with the Joneses? Is there something that kind of happens in dental school where everybody gets together and they're like, hey, listen, when we start making it, we're just going to buy all this fancy stuff and make everybody think we got lots of money, regardless of how much debt we have. Sorry, I'm not trying to bash your profession, but is that a thing?
Yeah, and I think a couple of factors. Number one is just what you said. It's what the public perceives. Oh, you're a doctor, then you must be wealthy. So it's almost like we have to look the part. And the other thing I think has to do, at least for me, delayed gratification. Because think about it, you get out of school, you get out of college, and you go to dental school, and you're taking loans, and all your friends are working and having fun and getting houses and cars, and we're living in little apartments, eating rice and beans. So we're just putting off that. So when we finally get out, we finally quote made it, we get our first paycheck. It's almost like we deserve the house or car or whatever. So I think that's kind of those two things combined is what you're seeing, what you're talking about is happening.
Well, doctor, I think we're going to go on a weird twist here because, there's nothing sexy about owning mobile homes, but you've crushed it in the real estate game, and you've written books on passive income, and you show this path of going from a doctor to this passive income route. And that's what we're going to kind of uncover in this podcast today, is like what happened that set you on that journey. Because listen, you went through all that schooling, back when you did it, is $300,000 in student loan, and then you were doing it, making it, and then one day, just out there enjoying your weekend, something happened and it changed the trajectory of your life. I'm sure you'll say for the better, but for some, that would have been a career-ending thing. Can we just talk a little bit about that part of your life and what happened?
Yeah, we love to snow ski, bring my kids every year. And this was a little over 10 years ago. Kids were young, and I had a skiing accident. My wife and I, we went up the lift, and as soon as we got off, if you know anything about snow skiing, you know that when kids are in ski school, they typically they follow the leader. They all get in the single file line. Well, for whatever reason, one of the kids broke off, and he just kind of was out of control, heading straight for me. And and I'm going down. I'm not the absolute best skier in the world. I'm okay, so I'm doing everything I can to avoid killing this kid. And when I did that, I turned, and when you fall, you instinctively put your hands down first. And when I did that, I hurt my hand, hurt my wrist pretty bad. And when I tell you, it scared the crap out of me, because you never think about getting hurt, getting injured, or getting sick until what? You get hurt or you get sick. So that never even crossed my mind. And that is probably, I guess the best analogy I can give is, that person that's really overweight, and you hadn't seen them in forever, and then you see them 10 years later, and you don't even recognize them. Like, holy crap, how did you lose so much weight? What do they typically say? I had chest pain, I had a heart attack, I had a wake-up call. And that was my wake-up call. Like, you know what? You make good money, but you are skating literally on thin ice financially. Because if we can't use our hands, we're screwed. And that was, and you probably, I know you have, and I know most of your listeners have read the book Start With Why. And that was my why. And I think people that are successful in anything in life, they have a strong why behind them, that no matter what it takes, you don't quit. So when I talk to people about whether it's real estate investing or passive income, 9 times out of 10, they don't do anything because they don't have a strong enough why. For me, it wasn't about I need passive income to go buy Ferraris and cars. It was like, something happened and I can't provide, I've got to have some other checks coming in. I don't want to rely on, disability insurance, because I deal with dental insurance and I know it's terrible. Any type of insurance. I wanted to take matters into my own hands. So I started down the path of, and another thing, doctors, dentists, they don't teach us anything about money.
No, they definitely do not. I have noticed that. I'm not going to lie. Like, they need to just add a little bit of curriculum in there, just so all docs understand money, because docs are some of the worst folks that we deal with when it comes to money. Again, I'm not trying to bash your industry, but we deal with lots of docs and surgeons, and I'll tell you, that is definitely a theme.
And something that's even worse now are these kids getting NIL money. My son was playing D1 football, and he's telling me all these stories about kids getting checks for $500,000 or $1 million. And it's 18, 19-year-old kid. That's going to ruin them. So we get no financial education. We go to all this schooling to get a job to make money, yet we're not taught about money.
But then also get trapped in your job. Your business becomes almost like you become a slave to it, especially if you don't learn how to scale it and get out of the business and work on it. But, I've seen lots of docs and dentists that, literally, like, They've been in the same place doing the same thing for 20, 30 years. And you can just tell they're not happy. And I want to just preface one other thing. And I'm pretty good at like jumping in on your conversation because I just get so interested on things. As a dentist, one of the things like that I think about, because we're going to step into this real estate world and eventually get to mobile home parks. But as a dentist, like you're busy, like seeing patients, especially as a solo practitioner, like you're seeing patients all day long. Like the normal dentist or normal doc doesn't have time to go be a landlord, to get the calls of leaky toilets. Yeah, you can hire property management, but most property management companies, they're not really very good. So like, how did you kind of make that transition? You had your why, but
Mhm.
actually, one final question: how many docs have you helped find their way into this passive income world?
Well, once I started what we call the passive investor circle, we have close to 5,000 people that have signed up. Now, I'm not saying they've all invested with us and that sort of thing, but they're at least getting the information needed to take action. So I feel really good about that. That I'm trying to help people not make the mistake, the path that I was going down as well.
All right, I didn't mean to interrupt the flow of
No,
where you
no.
were at. So I think where we left off is you had your why, you had your moment where you're just like, this isn't right, I can't continue here. So then, what catapulted you to this next level?
Yeah,
And
and
also
I've
don't leave out the details of like the transition, like because you got a dental practice. Let's not
mhm.
forget that you spent a lot of time in school to do this practice, and now all of a sudden you're kind of having doubts, and you're going to this way. So what would that transition look like for the average doctor?
And as you know, when people start going for information, YouTube and Google, they start serving you up more and more information, and you go down the inevitable rabbit hole. And that's what happened to me. I knew that people talked about real estate. I had no experience except I owned my house. That was it. Wasn't making any money off of it. So I took this deep dive into what do I needed to do to get other income streams. And literally I can condense all that information, 2 3 months of just rabbit hole for your audience into 2 sentences. This is what I found. And it's kind of like the book Napoleon Hill, Think and
Yeah,
Grow
thank
Rich,
you, grow
kind of
rich.
how he interviewed millionaires and all that back then. It was like, how are you wealthy? And this is kind of my Think and Grow Rich moment of 2025 is two things. Number one, this is when I say wealthy people, I'm talking about multi-million dollar, $100 million plus people. Number one, they all 90+% of them owned income producing real estate. Okay. Jeff didn't own any back then. Number two, all of them had multiple income streams that did not that came from them not having to trade their time for money. Plus, as you know, those income streams are taxed a lot less. So that made it really easy for me. I needed to invest in real estate for multiple streams of income that I would pay less taxes on it.
You
That
said something so important there, and I want to just make sure that the audience gets it. You went from a moment of understanding that to become wealthy, and there is a big difference between being rich and being wealthy. And folks, we might not get there, but what he was mentioning, wealthy is multi-millions, hundreds of billions, all right? Wealthy individuals, and we work with lots of them, they understand that the most valuable resource is time. But you, as a doctor, and most people that are just out there doing what they were told to do, they're trading time for money. You cannot become wealthy if all you do in your life is trade your time for money. You just can't, because there's 24 hours in the day,
mhm.
7 days a week. We all have to work off of that same clock. So until you step off of that and you start realizing how to make your money work for you instead of you working for it, it just can't happen. And that's what you just said. And I think that's so vital that everybody, I don't care if people watching this are 19 years old or 70 years old, you need to get really clear on that.
Hmm.
Your money has to be working for you, and you need multiple sources of money working for you. Sorry.
Right. And it's something else that I'm actually reading right now. I can throw a new fact in here. I haven't finished the book yet. It's called The Wealth Ladder. I think the guy's name's Nick Majuli. I'm probably butchering that. But anyway, he's a data analyst. It's pretty interesting because he looked at 6 different levels of wealth. Level one, you have less than $10,000 of net worth, all the way up to level six, where you have over 100 million in net worth. Most people are level three, level four, around 100,000 to $1 million net worth. And he said the first three levels, the majority of your money. So if you're a doctor, you're a dentist, you're an attorney, and you have a net worth of about $1 million, your three main sources of quote wealth are cash, like money, your vehicles, and your primary residence. Think about it. Think about it as you've come up, and of course, you got to have money to eat, and then you got to have vehicles to get to your work, and then you got to have a house to live in. But then when you go to a level, it's literally amazing. He has these graphs in the book, and it ties into what we're talking about. Level 4, 5, and 6. It's you of course you start to get away from it, but he starts talking about what we just talked about: income producing assets. Level 1 and level 2, level 3, hardly any. Then once you hit level 4, 5, 6, it goes from, I think, 50 to 85, 90% of their wealth is income producing assets. So that in itself should tell you right there that's what you should, if you really want to build not only wealth for you, but just like generational wealth, which is actually what it says in the Bible to do, to leave your kids, grandkids wealth, to change your family name. That's how you do it. So I knew what to do. I didn't know how to do it. And then luckily I read a book during this part called Who Not How. Because we all ask the how questions. Well, how do I find a property? How do I rent it out? How do I do all this stuff? But I didn't have the time. I'm busy because I think our biggest income producing tool is our profession, our job. So if I started taking time away from treating patients and having to deal with tenants, I'm losing out. I'm losing out on that income. So instead, I found a who that all he does is mobile home parks, and he owns mobile home parks. And it took a lot of. It's not like I just automatically did it. I can get into how I did it, but to fast forward, I found a who that was just a phenomenal operator, and I was able to partner with him, bring him value by bringing him my own capital plus capital from other people, because I kind of started a following. And now we've scaled it from, I think he owned 2 or 3, and now we own 11 mobile home parks together because of that. And it's really just so nice being able to go into your job or your profession every day and not have to worry about money. Think about how you would treat your employees if you own a business. Think about how you would treat your customers, your clients, your patients. Somebody that really wants, treatment from me, and just, I'm working and my husband's working and our kid, and like, okay, I don't need the money. I'll do it for you for free. So it just helps. It helps everything. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I'll second that. So, I've struggled with money my whole life for the most part. I've always been self-employed since 16, but I was never good with money until I started learning the things that I apply now over the last 20 years. But in that cycle, I will tell you, one of the most important things that has kind of come to me is, as I've gotten to different levels of wealth and as I've had this money, my focus has completely changed to not just everything I do is to solve my problems and to make more money for me, to now to give, to create our foundation, to just do for others and solve other people's problems. It's like a mindset shift that like happens almost instantaneously when you're not worried about how you're going to put food on the table, how you're going to pay the bills. When you get beyond that, money takes on a different form, and you get to start really doing things that matter in life. And also too, and I'm sure you've realized this, money has a very steep decline when it comes to, like, as you make more, it has a diminishing return. It's less and less important. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's not true. No, I promise you it's true. At a certain level, and I don't know what it is, 2 million to 3 million, maybe, just ballparking it starts declining in terms of value. The amount, the value you put on money diminishes. And I know it's weird, but money just takes on a different form. It becomes more of a tool than it is a necessity. And you start to learn how to use that tool, and you get really good with aspects of that tool. Think of it like a shovel. There's some people that are just really good at using a shovel or a rake, and other people are just not. That's money. It's just a tool. And what you're describing here is exactly that. You started figuring out how to refine this tool and how to use it in different ways. And then that tool took on a whole new shape. And man, I just love mobile home parks. I mentioned to you offline, when I was a kid, I grew up in mobile home parks. My grandparents lived there, and that's where we spent all of our time. And it was just the norm for me. It was later when I was in high school, people like, you start seeing that mobile homes aren't cool. It's like not cool to live in a mobile home park, but like for me, it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. And, and think about where this country's going. Affordable housing. Everything is focused on affordable housing. Luckily, we're in two areas. I live in Louisiana, so all of our mobile home parks in Louisiana. But
That's a great place for mobile home parks, just so you know.
Yeah, so it's great. But we kind of lucked up, and we're in two separate areas of the state where up here, 30 miles from my house, Meta and Google are now building $10 billion data centers. Think about what that's doing. And then we have another park down south, kind of by Baton Rouge, that they're building a $3.8 billion Bitcoin mining facility or whatever. So the workforce that comes in, and these are happening all over the country. So originally we were thinking, okay, we're going to have all these workers coming in needing a place to stay. That's true, but here's what's happening. All that real estate's going up. If let's say you own an apartment and you're charging people $1,000 a month, and something like that comes in, a data center or whatever, where people are coming in, they can just pay whatever. You go, okay, well, I'm not charging $1,000 a month. I'm going to charge $2,000. Well, what's going to happen to that tenant? I can't pay $2,000. I've got to go find affordable housing. He gets pushed out. Those are the phone calls we're getting now. And that's what's happening into a lot of these areas is the people are getting pushed out because people are raising their rents up so much. And then it's just everyone is just looking for affordable housing, whether it's mobile home parks, RV, sometimes RV parks have like little RVs where you can stay in, little cabins, that sort of thing. And we really saw this after COVID. There was this big influx of money that people had. And then once they blew through it and the rates went up, they were like, well, we can't afford houses anymore. And it doesn't get any more affordable. As you know, you lived in a mobile home park. It really doesn't get any more affordable than a mobile home park. I guess your next step is living in a tent or something like that.
That's probably
so.
Right.
I think it's just a good place to be in, and being in a position where you can provide those people with a good, clean, safe place that you can go in and change it, and that's what we do. I mean, we have like this formula that we do as soon as we buy and people are really appreciative of all the riffraff that we get rid of. And now they're like, our kids can ride their bikes in there and not have to worry about stuff. And you have lighting. We didn't have security lighting. And so it's nice to be able to, you're making money doing it and you're helping the investors, but you're also helping the residents as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up.
When you talk about it, you're not the only one. I mean, Warren Buffett loves mobile home parks. I mean, so like if you want to talk about one of the goats, if you will, of investing, I mean, he owns lots of mobile home parks and thinks it's one of the best things. But in today's world, more so than ever before, I mean, it's kind of sad, Dr. Jeff, to think. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm 48, but growing up, like, it was a big deal to own a house. The American dream still was alive for my generation, Gen Xers, of owning a home. Like, that was still a really big deal. But like, when you look at the new generations, like, because of the housing, the cost of owning a home, I mean, that's not the American dream anymore. It's almost just not even realistic. The average median home price throughout this country is so high that kids that are coming through college or, just coming up into the world where they just got to start thinking about this, they're just like, can't afford that. And it's not even them saying that. That's the reality. A very small percentage of the population in the United States can actually afford to own a house. So like, So some things have to happen. And I think you're helping this, with mobile home parks is we need to start realizing that affordable housing is more of an importance than we ever thought. And I think, I did a YouTube video all about the housing. There's a housing shortage. We heard about that all through COVID, after COVID, like there's a housing shortage. So build, build, build. All the developers got it all wrong. And Doctor, I know you know this because you're in the right space, but they started building all these luxury apartment buildings, these mixed use apartment buildings, the ones that, you rent an apartment, it's $2,500 to $3,000. I mean, I can't even fathom that, but that's just what they built because it penciled on paper and because the banks, that's what they wanted to see. But they completely missed the mark. The need for housing is still there, but it was always affordable housing. The developers and all the builders built the wrong thing, and they're suffering tremendously for it. In the Sun Belt states, they're double digit right now, double digit vacancy numbers. That isn't sustainable. What's your vacancy numbers, Doctor, in your mobile home parks?
I mean, maybe 1% to 2%.
1% to 2%.
Maybe.
So basically, the vacancy is really just you're turning over a unit.
Yeah, and I haven't even gotten into the best part of mobile home park. Well, one of the best parts is how we run them, because if people are saying, well, how do you deal with all the phone calls and management, this and that? We don't, because we will buy parks that are mainly tenant-owned homes, and if they do have any park-owned homes where they're renting them, we turn those into rent-to-own. So if the plumbing breaks, or if you have a backup, or if a light fixture goes out or something, it's not our home. We're just charging them lot rent. They're renting the land, and that's it.
That's what Warren Buffett does.
Yeah. So why? If you want to buy one and you want to do rentals, there's plenty of parks that have rentals where you rent it to them, but when they get ticked off and leave, what are they going to do? They're going to trash the place. They're going to knock holes in the wall. And then you have to spend money, and all that rent for the last year you've collected now goes into repairing it. We didn't want to deal with that. So that is how we get to the point where we don't have to deal with any maintenance. We don't have any on-site park managers. We do everything through an app where we bill them and do all that. And it's just, I'm telling you, I found an unbelievable who that just has a blueprint down, and we roll with it. And it's been great.
All right, so now we're going to get into the real fun stuff. So remember, back to that question I had asked you. If you're a doctor, let's just not just focus on doctors. If you're anyone that's in a profession where you got one income, maybe you had a lot of schooling to get into your profession, and you're doing this, and you're thinking, oh, I want to get into real estate, but number one, I don't know how, I don't have the time, and all these different things. Like, how could they just hook onto the wagon? Now, I know you've got a book on this. You've got a free guide to passive income that I'm sure answers that. But listen, let's just get it out of the way. Like, how do you help people go from being stuck, and whether they feel like they're stuck or not, that's what they are, into this new world, and start creating multiple lines of income with mobile home investing, but they don't have to deal with, the issues and all the headaches that come along with owning real estate? Because I at one point had 91 doors, and I hated every minute of it. I'm not going to lie. I hated every minute. Every day, it just seemed like something was going wrong. And every time I started getting ahead, and I'm like, oh, wow, things are actually working, something big would break. It was just this vicious cycle. So after COVID, I just sold them all, and I started just lending. But I've always loved mobile home parks, and I swim almost every morning with a gentleman, big developer, and he owns lots of mobile home parks, but he's never said to me, hey, if you ever want to invest in mobile home parks, give me a call.
Right.
But that's kind of what you're doing. You're saying, hey, I figured something out here. I hooked on to a really good system. I got a really good operator, and we have literally figured this out, and you can show them the way. So let's just get right into it. How do people hook onto this wagon?
I do exactly what you're doing. I put out free content on my YouTube channel, on my website, debtfreedoctor.com. And then you can go to YouTube, type in Debt Free Doctor and then my name, or you can go to my website, debtfreedoctor.com, have the free passive income guide, the YouTube links on there, and you can just start learning about it, because real estate isn't for everybody. But we set it up in a way to where instead of you putting your money in a 401k or whatever, and you can't get it until you're 60 years old, we pay our investors on a monthly basis. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a CPA, but as you know, the majority of this is, I don't want to say tax free, but it's tax deferred. And as long as you keep investing in it, you have all these passive income streams coming in. You're not paying taxes on them because of the depreciation. Again, I didn't know any of that. So I encourage people to learn about that, how that works. I have not my pastor, but he lives down the street from me. He's my neighbor. He has a bunch of property, and we were sitting outside one day, and he's telling me about all this property. I have self-storage units. I've got some rental houses, apartments, and he's telling me all this stuff. And his wife's sitting there, and I say, "Oh, okay, Brian, do y'all manage it? Who manages it?" He's like, "Well, I'm full-time pastor. I do a little bit, but my wife, she handles it." I said, "Okay, are y'all filing real estate professional status?" And they both looked at each other, and they looked at me, and they were like, "What's that?" And I said, "Has your accountant ever?"
Time for a new accountant, that's for sure.
So 99% of the time when I have that conversation, nothing happens because, as you know, nobody takes action, and that's fine. So I text him some of my YouTube videos about real estate professional status or whatever, and he said thank you, and then didn't hear anything of it. So I'm playing a lot of pickleball now, and I'm playing pickleball with another pastor that's with him. They work together. And he said, he came up to me the other day and he's like, "Hey, Jeff, Brian, the original pastor," he goes, "That guy, I work with him, right?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "That we're like best friends." It's like, "Yeah." He said, "That guy loves you, right?" Like, what are you talking about? So he tells me he actually went to his account he's like, he didn't tell me what he's saving now, but it's a lot of money every year just because of that. And I was like, well, he hasn't even offered to buy me a steak or anything. So we had a joke about it, but well, whatever. But the thing is, if I would have never educated myself on depreciation and real estate professional status and all that, nobody's going to. Nobody cares, Chris. Nobody cares more about your money than who?
You,
right? Well, for me, maybe
actually,
my wife.
You should rephrase that. You should say nobody should care more about their money than you. But
yeah, the only person that cares more about my money than me is my wife, probably. But other than that,
yeah, I understand that.
But you have to take it. My point is, just about everybody that I talk to, and we'll set up a call sometimes, and I'll just kind of listen to people, and I'm like, "Well, what do you do with your money?" 9 times out of 10, well, I send it to my guy. "Well, okay, what are you invested in?"
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm like, wait a minute. You went to school for freaking 30 years. You busted your butt, and you're grinding it out every day, and you don't know where your money is going. I mean, that to me, that is ignorance.
Well, it's not just ignorant. It's literally violating the laws of wealth. I mean, people need to understand there are laws to wealth, and there always has been. I mean, you go back as far back in time as you want. Read The Richest Man in Babylon. You can read any of the stuff I've done on the 6 laws of wealth. And one of those laws is protect your wealth, and that is by simply invest only in things that you know, like, and understand. But what you just said is this person says, "I give it to my guy," and they don't even know what they're investing in. So they don't have a clue. It's not even like they're not investing in something that they don't know, like, and understand. They don't even have a clue. They're like, "I don't know, my guy handles that." Really? Wow. That's pretty scary.
Yeah. And I understand not everybody is cut out to handle their own money, and that's fine. But at least sit down with that person and get them to tell you, "Hey, this is what we're investing in here. This is our goals. This is the fees I'm charging you. These are the taxes." I mean, you should know all of that. And in that way, or educate yourself enough to ask them questions like your accountant. No, more than likely, your accountant is just filing your taxes. There's no tax strategy. I have a call every quarter with my accountant. I'm letting him know, "Hey, this year we're looking at selling this. We're looking at acquiring this, whatever. Okay, let me get back with you and we'll have a plan." I didn't do any of that for the first 10, 12 years of my practice because I didn't know that all that stuff existed. I mean, in the Bible, it says what does it say? Surround yourself with advisors. Get people in the room that are smarter than you. Let them advise you. That's what you pay them for.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, listen, you're preaching my language. I mean, this is what we teach every single day. You know, we have a registered investment advisory that we own. You know, we teach money. We teach how to take control of money. We teach all these things you're talking about. But the fundamentals, going back to this, a lot of the things you said are just simple laws of wealth. You know, first, you got to keep what you make. You got to keep at least a percentage of what you make. It's 10%'s the number. I mean, that's even in the Bible. Then you got to kind of go beyond that, and you got to make your money work for you. We talked about that today. Instead of you working for money, you got to start making the money that you keep work for you. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just going to work yourself into the ground. You know, how many people just go through life day in and day out, and if you ask them why they go to work, they say, oh, because everybody else does. So that's why they do. That's called conforming, folks. The way to get ahead in life is to create, like Dr. Jeff has. You create the life you want. No one else is going to do it for you. Your guy isn't going to do it for you. You've got to create the life you want. And listen, this is just one path, but this is a darn good path. You've done it. You found your way out of it, right? So mobile home parks of all places, but it's like one of the best places because it's one that's never going to be, it's never not going to be in demand. Right now it's in more demand than ever before, but it's never not going to be in demand. And you're always going to be, it's like one of the most profitable real estate, avenues you can go down.
Yeah.
I just can't see why more people wouldn't want to know about this.
And then please, your listeners, do me a favor and do yourself a favor, do your family a favor. When you do learn how to do this, have conversations with your kids. Because if not, they're going to be the same thing as you. They're not going to learn anything about money. I have 2 kids in college now, 20 and an 18-year-old, and I've always taught them not what to invest in, but these conversations. Because it starts right here. You have to think differently about money. You know, my 18-year-old, he'll send me screenshots. Dad, look at these dividends that I'm getting today, and this and that. And it's just, when I was 18, I'm mowing yards. I'm not thinking about dividends and all. You know, it's just get them to just thinking about it when their friends come over. I had some of the. I was friends with people that their parents were so wealthy, and looking back on it, they never said anything. They could have given us so much knowledge, but they didn't. So make it a point when you have your kids, talk to them. When they have their friends over, talk to them. Just start the conversation, because I guarantee you their parents aren't. And what are they going to do? They're going to go to school. They're going to get a job. And what does that stand for? Just over broke. And they're going to be struggling. And what's the number one cause of divorce in America? It's money fights. And you can prevent all of that now by, number one, you learning yourself how to handle it, because as you know, to much is giving, much is required. That's why lottery people go broke. That's why pro athletes go broke. They don't know how to handle it. Doctors, they're broke because they don't know how to handle it. So they just keep working, and they got the golden handcuffs on.
Yeah.
So start with, listening to Chris' podcast, listening to things like that interest you. Get your house in order first, and then you can help other people.
I think, going to the kids, I have a 5-year-old daughter, and, one of the things me and my wife talk about most is making sure that she goes out and talks to people. She learns how to communicate. I feel like in today's world, 2025, I feel like it's never in history been easier to set yourself up and get ahead. I literally, truly believe that there's never been a time in history that is easier than right here, right now, to become wealthy, to get ahead, to literally have the life you want. And you know why? Because we live in a society where no one is doing the extra. They're doing just enough. The children, no disrespect to them, and the parents, most importantly, should be listening to this. They're allowing their kids to literally become socially awkward because they live in a phone. They live in a device, and that's their reality. Get your kid off the phone. Get them out talking to people. Do a lemonade stand with them. Have them, sell cookies at a garage sale. Walk with them over to people and say, hey, this is how you do it. You say, hello, how are you doing? Would you like to buy a cookie? How much are they? They're $1, where you could buy 2 or, 3 for $2. And just start creating that. And here's the other thing too, that I think is just all but dead. It's the Sermon on the Mount. This is the one thing. If all of you want to change your life, just listen to these 3 things. And if you start doing these, doors will open for you all along the way. First, ask and you shall receive. It's that simple. Ask questions. If you don't know, ask. Call Dr. Jeff if you don't know or you want to learn. You'll receive. You watch. Seek, and you shall find. If you go out there with a worthy idea and you're looking for it, you're going to find it. Have any of you ever paid attention in your lives that when you start focusing on something, let's just say you start focusing on dimes. I don't know, it just came to my mind. What happens? You start finding dimes, don't you? Isn't that weird? Seek and you shall find. And the last and most importantly, knock and the door shall be opened.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things, if you just did those, if you taught forget about you, if you taught your kids those three things and you showed them in real life how easy they actually are, their life would be completely different than yours. Yep. Their life would be full of all I can call it is magic, because doors would be open, questions would be answered, and they'd find everything they're looking for if they just ask, seek, and knock. It's that simple. And Dr. Jeff, that's all you're doing here is you're literally opening a door and you're saying, hey, listen, I give my best stuff away for free. It's all here. Download my free guide to passive income. Get my book. Like, sign up. Let's chat. Let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how a path to making your money work for you instead of you working for money, taking control of your money.
You can go on YouTube and there's multi-millionaires, sometimes billionaires that have a YouTube channel, and you can comment and ask a question on their YouTube channel. That's boom, right there. You have access to them. It's free, and either they'll respond or the team will. What better way to do it than that, you know? One other thing that I want to say, you're talking about kids, is I think the kids, like if I go to the health club, a couple of different health clubs, restaurants, you go to bank or whatever, 9 times out of 10, it's kids or younger people, and they're all on their phone and this and that. But the ones that stand out, how are you doing today, sir? They have a conversation. They can look you in the eye just like you're teaching your 5-year-old. In my opinion, those are the ones that are just going to fly by everybody else just because they stand out because they have good customer service. And my best employees, that's how I found them. I give them a card. I said, if you want to ever want a job, I'll pay you more than this. Come see me. And you're getting the people. So encourage you, teach your kids that, just what Chris is talking about with this 5-year-old.
It's funny. We were at the fair the other day and we're walking around and, there's those booths where they're selling windows. And I remember we're walking by and this kid, he's just a kid, came up and started talking to me and asked really good questions. I mean, I didn't want windows. And I told him, no, our windows are relatively new. But the way he commented, the way he was like, oh, you must work out. And he commented on my shirt. He found relatability. Now I know all this stuff. So I kind of knew exactly what he was doing. But a kid his age, couldn't have been more than 17. Did you realize he is 1% of 1%, but he will go on and do massive things. He might be just selling windows today just to get by, but you know what? Because he's communicating, he's finding relatability. He's asking the right questions. I literally said to my wife, I'm like, I'd hire that guy. That's how you find them. Yeah, they stand out from everybody else. I'm at a fair, thousands of people. This one kid stood out. All he did was 1% more than everybody else. That's it.
It's simple.
Wow.
Yet it's so hard.
It is. It is. Well, Doctor, I appreciate you coming on. And folks, if you want to learn more, it's debtfreedr, debtfreedr.com. I'll put it up in the description for you. Go on.
We also have Debt Free Doctor. You could spell it out. So either way.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. So Debt Free DR or Debt Free Doctor, whatever you prefer. You like typing a couple more letters, type them in there and get on there, get the guide, get on a call, just learn how this works. Again, ask and you shall receive. That's exactly where you're at right now. So just ask the question, folks. Hopefully all of you listening to this podcast want to change. Hopefully you're all looking for that answer, that one thing. This may or may not be that, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So Doctor, any parting words you'd like to tell my audience?
Just to kind of go a little bit further, teaching your kids and this and that, if you can literally take whatever you do for a living, and if you focus on content and just helping either your customer, let's say you're a plumber, you could just focus on creating content for people that need plumbing problems. Or to take it a step further, if you really want to build wealth, you can help other plumbers by what you know. Like I'm helping other doctors and dentists. So think start thinking about that. What are you good at? I know you're good at your profession, but could you do better helping your customers' clients, or could you do better helping other types of people, whatever you do for a living? So once you start thinking about that, then you can start to create content, which you create a following like Chris has done, like I've done. And then literally the sky's the limit. That's when networking starts opening up. That's how I got into real estate and raising capital, because people said, Jeff, you have a following that, and I said, what is raising capital? I said, well, you're teaching people about stuff, and if you basically, you're investing with us, right? Yeah. Well, if we make everything legal and you can tell them about this deal, they can invest alongside of you. But if I would have never gotten out there and created content, I would have never known that. So my point is, if you have something useful, share it, and you never know what's going to happen.
I love that. Give your best stuff away for free and opportunities will follow. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you just got lucky. There is no such thing as luck, folks. The faster you realize luck doesn't exist, the better off you're going to be. Luck is literally just something that follows opportunity. If you sniff out and seek opportunity every day, if that's what you continue to seek, then luck, you'll just become really lucky. And then everybody will start saying, well, he's the lucky one. He always gets lucky. No, he doesn't.
Yeah, because if, I'm from Louisiana. Let me ask you this. If you fish once a year versus fishing once a week, how many fish do you think you're going to catch? You're going to catch more fish fishing once a year or every week? Every week, right? So that's the same thing. If you just get out there and just help people every week, share content, whatever, you're going to catch more fish.
Love that.
Simple rule of mouth.
Well, this has been really good. Dr. Jeff, thank you so very much for coming on the podcast. And
enjoyed it.
I hope all of you listening, I hope you got a lot out of this. And now it's time for you to take action. So figure out what you're going to do with this. If you've made it to this point of this episode, you need to take that next step. So go on there, get on the website, read the guide, start learning. Open the door, and you will find something you like, and you will start the process of changing your life. Thanks for everything, everybody. And thank you so very much for joining us for this episode. We'll see you on the next one.